Hey everybody, welcome back, and today I'll be discussing my book a little more in depth today. As I mentioned previously, the working title is Infected. And I suppose right now the way I would describe the book is it's very much a story inspired by the new millennium we find ourselves in. And I'm referring, of course, to the year 2000 and now when I refer to the new millennium. We've seen a lot of challenges come up recently in the past few decades. I mean, all kinds of different environmental challenges, political challenges, and this has inspired whole new waves of fiction, And let's just look a little bit into that. Stories like the Hunger Games and whatnot were very much stories of our decade, right? We read Charles Dickens, and what was Charles Dickens? He was very much a writer of his generation, describing the many social ills and problems his generation faced, and his book's really a comment on his times. So I suppose that's really what I'm attempting to do, is sort of comment on the times that I find myself living in. And that's how I describe Infected for now. It's inspired. The main premise is, what if there was a man-developed plague that could potentially wipe out the world? Spoiler alert, the world doesn't get wiped out. What kind of a story would that be? Am I right? But that's the premise. What if mankind went too far in developing biological weapons, right? That's the premise. And that's all I can reveal right now about the plot line. I'm still, full disclosure, I'm developing a lot. I'm still in development. But I'd like to discuss a little bit about the characters, because I know I like the characters a lot. I suppose one of my favorite characters would be the character of, I call him Captain Locke, Locke. And I really like his character because Captain Locke doesn't show up until about a quarter of the book. And he is simply he's the man that runs the military base, right, near where the plague is starting to break out. And he sees this threat incoming, and he knows what it is, more importantly. Out of all the people in his entire unit, he's the only person that understands the gravity of the threat. And Captain Locke is the only one with the bravery to put himself in harm's way to save as many lives as possible. And I love that about him. Captain Locke he's a quieter character, which is something else that I think is interesting. He's very brave, he's very strong, but he's also very quiet. He only speaks when he thinks it's absolutely necessary. What inspires Captain Locke is the fact that I write in the story that he was in the war in Afghanistan, and he was the only surviving member of his unit. And rather than have PTSD or something, that rather inspired him. That fueled him. The loss of his teammates, his brethren, essentially inspires him to move on and continue fighting, to not let their sacrifice go in vain. And that's really who Captain Locke is. He's a man of honors. I suppose that's how I describe him. That's why I like him so much. He's a man of moral and principle, and always do what's right, even if that means removing yourself from the equation, so to speak. And I really like that about Captain Locke. I'll be keeping him alive throughout book 1. As for part 2, well, we'll see about that. But I haven't made that decision. But that's why I really like his character. I suppose another character I really like is the character of Trevor. And he's sort of the nerd, the amusing nerd in the story, because we all need a little lightheartedness, right? And Trevor is probably the smartest person in the whole book, but even he himself doesn't realize it. And he's the only one, and the reason he's important is he's the only one capable of understanding what the plague is and how to stop it. He's the one you need to watch because he's smart enough to figure out how to diffuse the situation. He just he hasn't figured that out yet. So there's a lot of character arc going on with him. As he starts out, he's very nervous. He's not sure of himself, but he becomes a lot more confident later on. Another favorite character of mine is the main character, of course, Logan. I really like him because he's how would I describe him? He's a lovable goofball, right? He's always the first one to jump into danger, but he doesn't always like to look before he leaps. He just wants to jump right in, and he's like, oh, this is dangerous, right? That's just how he is. He's very impulsive. He's very in the moment, but that's why he's important, because in the disaster scenario he finds himself in, you don't really have time to do that. And I guess that's why I like him. He's very humorous character. I like the way he comes out of certain situations. I don't want to reveal too much about that, but he comes with very unique scenarios. I like that about him. So that's supposed to be a little bit about the book, some of the characters I've written so far. That I have to admit, one thing I did not previously imagine is that I find myself growing very attached to my own characters. I really like them, and I'm very hesitant to kill them off. I don't understand writers who can do that. I don't really want to do that. I like them too much for that. So that's some thoughts on the book I'm writing. I'm looking forward to all of you reading it. I'm looking forward to myself reading the final manuscript. So don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe.